It's the machine that conquered continents, built nations, and truly shrank the world. It was the iron heart of the Industrial Revolution, a symphony of fire, steam, and steel. But before this mechanical marvel roared to life, our world was a much, much bigger and slower place. This is the story of how a handful of visionary inventors took the simple power of boiling water and used it to change the course of human history forever. This is the story of the steam railway engine. Before the hiss of steam and the clatter of iron wheels, the pace of life was dictated by muscle and wind. For centuries, the fastest you could travel over land was on a galloping horse. Trade, communication, even ideas moved at a crawl. You have to imagine a world of isolated communities. A journey of just a few dozen miles was a major undertaking, often taking days. The cost of getting raw materials from a mine to a factory or finished goods to a market was so high it actively choked growth and new ideas. Industry was physically tethered to its resources. For society to take its next great leap, for the Industrial Revolution to truly catch fire, humanity needed a new way to move. It needed a way to conquer distance and time itself. The world didn't know it yet, but it was waiting for an invention that would snap the old constraints and lay new tracks toward the future. The story of the steam locomotive doesn't begin on a railway. It starts deep underground, in the flooded coal mines of Britain. Now, the power of steam wasn't some new discovery. Its basic principles had been understood since antiquity. But it was in the early 18th century that it was finally harnessed for real industrial work. Inventors like Thomas Newcomen built massive, stationary atmospheric engines to pump water out of mines. These things were revolutionary, but also wildly inefficient, great lumbering beasts of iron and wood, stuck to the mines they served. The next great leap forward came from a Scottish instrument maker named James Watt. In the 1760s, Watt dramatically improved the Newcomen design by adding a separate condenser, making the steam engine far more efficient and versatile. His engines didn't just pump water, they could turn a shaft, providing the rotary motion needed to power textile looms and iron forges. Watt had unleashed the power that would drive the Industrial Revolution, but it was still a stationary power. The idea of putting one of these powerful, heavy, and volatile engines on wheels and making it move? To most people, that sounded like a dangerous fantasy. It would take a new kind of inventor, someone with a different and, frankly, more reckless vision, to take steam on the road. That man was Richard Trevithick, a Cornish mining engineer with a rebellious streak and an obsession with high-pressure steam. While James Watt was terrified of high-pressure steam, thinking it was too dangerous, Trevithick saw it as the key to making smaller, more powerful, and, crucially, mobile engines. He was a true pioneer, often dismissed by his peers and teetering on the edge of financial ruin, yet he relentlessly pushed the boundaries of what was possible. After building a steam-powered road carriage nicknamed the Puffing Devil, Trevithick turned his focus to rails. And in 1804, at the Penydarren Iron Works in Wales, he made history. His steam locomotive, which was technically unnamed but is often called the Penydarren locomotive, was set upon the iron tramway. On February 21st, it successfully hauled a train carrying 10 tons of iron and 70 men over a distance of 9.75 miles. It was the world's first locomotive-hauled railway journey. Trevithick had proved, definitively, that a steam engine could pull a heavy load on smooth rails. But his invention was ahead of its time. The engine was so heavy it kept breaking the brittle cast-iron rails it ran on, and it was eventually just converted into a stationary engine. Trevithick, the bold visionary, had lit the spark, but he wouldn't be the one to fan it into a global flame. He had shown the world the way, but it would take another man to build the road. That man was George Stephenson, a self-taught engineer from the coal fields of Northumberland. Unlike the brilliant but erratic Trevithick, Stephenson was a methodical and practical genius. He spent years building and perfecting what he called traveling engines for the local collieries. He understood something fundamental. The locomotive was only half of the equation. The railway itself had to be engineered to a whole new standard of strength and smoothness. His big moment came in 1825 with the opening of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. Stephenson designed it to haul coal to the coast, and it became the world's first public railway to use steam locomotives. On opening day, his engine, Locomotion No. 1 Warren, pulled a train packed with coal, and a few brave passengers, marking the true dawn of the railway era. But the ultimate test was still to come. The backers of the planned Liverpool and Manchester Railway, the world's first intercity line, weren't convinced that locomotives were better than stationary cable hauling systems. So, in 1829, they staged a grand competition to find the best engine, the Rainhill Trials. 10 engines were entered, but only 5 made it to the starting line. The event captivated the nation. One by one, the competitors broke down, until only one was left chugging along. It was the entry from George and his son, Robert Stephenson, a revolutionary machine they called the rocket. The rocket wasn't just one invention. It was a brilliant combination of several key innovations, especially its multi-tube boiler that dramatically boosted its power and efficiency. It blew through the trials, reaching what was then an unbelievable speed of 30 miles per hour. The rocket had won, and in doing so, it had secured the future. The age of steam had officially arrived. The success of the rocket and the opening of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway in 1830 unleashed a full-blown railway mania. What was once a novelty suddenly became the essential technology of the age. Britain was gripped by a speculative frenzy, with new railway lines being chartered and built at a breathtaking pace, crisscrossing the country and connecting every major city, port, and industrial center. The impact was immediate. The cost of shipping goods plummeted. Fresh food from the countryside could reach city markets in hours, not days. People could travel farther and faster than ever before, completely changing their sense of distance and opportunity. The railway didn't just move goods and people. It moved information and ideas, knitting the nation together in a way that was previously unimaginable. And this revolution didn't stop at Britain's shores. Tracks were laid across Europe and, most dramatically, across the vast expanses of North America. In the United States, the steam locomotive became the vanguard of westward expansion, opening up the prairies, connecting the coasts, and literally forging a continental nation. It was more than transport. It was a tool of empire, an agent of industry, and a symbol of humanity's power over nature. The decades after the Rainhill Trials were the golden age of steam. The basic design of the rocket, a horizontal boiler with a firebox at one end and a smoke box at the other, became the standard, but the machines themselves evolved into titans of power and speed. Engineering moved beyond simple trial and error and became a real science. Innovations came thick and fast. Steel replaced iron, which meant stronger, higher-pressure boilers. Superheaters were introduced to boost steam temperature and efficiency. Locomotives just got bigger, with massive fireboxes to generate more power and new wheel arrangements to handle the immense weight. Articulated locomotives were designed to allow these giants to navigate curves, and mechanical stokers took over the backbreaking job of shoveling tons of coal into the firebox. This quest for power peaked with the superpower locomotives of the mid-20th century. We're talking about magnificent machines like the Union Pacific Big Boy, the largest steam locomotives ever built. These engines were the absolute apex of steam technology, capable of hauling mile-long freight trains at high speeds. They were the undisputed kings of the rails, symbols of industrial might that captured the public's imagination. But even as steam technology was reaching its peak, a new rival was on the horizon. The diesel engine, first patented by Rudolf Diesel back in the 1890s, offered a different way forward. In the years after World War II, the decline of steam was swift and unstoppable. While a steam locomotive was cheaper to build, a diesel locomotive was better in almost every other way. They were way more fuel efficient. They needed far less maintenance. A steam engine spent a huge chunk of its life in the workshop being cleaned and repaired, while a diesel could run for days with minimal fuss. They were also less work to operate, requiring just one person instead of a driver and a fireman. For the railway companies now facing fierce competition from roads and airplanes, the economic argument was simply undeniable. By the 1960s, in most industrialized countries, the fires had been dropped for the last time. The great steam sheds fell silent. The very machines that had built the modern world were retired, sold for scrap, or left to rust in a forgotten siding. The once familiar sound of the steam whistle faded into memory, replaced by the low grumble of the diesel engine. The age of steam was over. From Richard Trevithick's bold gamble in a Welsh valley to the thundering expresses of the 20th century, the steam locomotive was the engine of a mind-boggling transformation. For over a century, it was the driving force of progress, the machine that laid the tracks for our modern, interconnected world. It shrank distances, built cities, fueled economies, and forever changed our relationship with time and space. And even though they don't haul our freight or carry our passengers anymore, the great steam engines haven't been forgotten. You can still find them, lovingly preserved on heritage railways and in museums all over the world. They live on as monuments to a bygone era of incredible ingenuity and ambition. They're a powerful, nostalgic reminder of a time when the world was remade in a cloud of steam, and the beat of a piston was the very pulse of a revolution.